for the reason that you wanted to protect Lee. At the same time, you were the individual who revealed to the FBI what you knew about the General Walker shooting. Is that correct?
Yes.
Can you explain to us why you would attempt to protect him by telling untruths about other things such as the rifle, the trip to Mexico, things of that nature? Daughter, all persons are requested to take their seats and remain in their seats until the witness has again come into the room and been seated at the witness table. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Sawyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Going back to this, well, the picture's gone now, but with the writing on the reverse side. They don't in Russia use exclamation marks, do they?
Yes.
Do they? Would they use 3 exclamation marks after something?
Any number you like.
Pardon?
Any number that you like, yes. 1 or 3, yes.
Do you know whether or not that writing in Russian on the top that says "Hunter for fascist, ha ha ha," would have been Lee's writing?
I do not know, sir.
You don't think so?
I do not know whose writing that is.
You do not know, is that right?
No.
Did you ever see any writing by Mr. de Morschel?
Not that I recall.
I remember your testifying yesterday that you were startled, as I think were your words, or shocked, to find that de Morschel knew about Lee's having shot at General Walker. Recall that?
Yes.
And you were startled because you knew you hadn't told him about it.
Yes.
And I noticed that the date on the transmittal of this picture to George de Morschel is April 5th, 1963, whereas Walker was shot at on April 23rd, 1963. So presumably, de Morschel not only knew about the fact that Lee had shot at Walker, but had received this picture from Lee before that date, before the date of that shooting. Is that right?
So what would you like me to, so what's the purpose of that question? I mean, I did not send this picture.
Well, just as I look at this, and I don't purport to be any kind of a handwriting expert, but the writing at the bottom, copyright GDM, bears some considerable significance or similarity to some of the letters of the title written up there in Russian. Did de Morschel speak and write Russian?
Yes, I think it is.
Fluently?
Yes.
And as I recall it, you said that Lee referred to General Walker as a fascist. Is this correct?
Yes.
But you don't, you're not familiar with the handwriting of de Morschel yourself?
No.
But you don't think this is your handwriting in any event?
I don't think so, sir.
And as to whether it would be Lee's or not, you just don't know. Is this right?
No, I mean, if anybody have my handwriting of some, I know, in Russian somewhere, they're welcome to compare.
When de Morschel let you understand that, or from whatever he said, let you understand he'd known about the shooting by Oswald at Walker, what precisely did he say then?
I do not recall the incident, very clearly, but I think that I was kind of surprised that he made a remark like that, and I assumed that Lee told him, or, and I look at him, and then Lee looked at me that was thinking that I told him about. Maybe it was just his joking guess or something. Maybe he knew Lee quite well or better than...
Was there any... Did you ask Lee about how he knew about it?
If I did not recall right now, remember.
Was there anything in what de Morschel said that may have given the impression he may have participated in that shooting?
It's never crossed my mind, sir.
It never occurred to you? Did Lee ever say anything about de Morschel having participated in it with him?
No.
When he told you about it, did he tell you he did it alone?
As far as the Walker incident goes?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Is your answer yes?
Yes.
And he never at any time mentioned that the Morshell may have participated or aided or abetted in any way?
No.
Now, when you saw on television that the president had been shot, or were told that that's what was on television, you stated that the blood rushed to your face and that you were very upset momentarily. You recall that?
Yes.
Did you then proceed immediately to go out and check in the garage to see if the rifle was gone?
I went outside in the backyard, but to clothesline because I don't want Ruth to see, my face. And then I went in the garage, I think. What I remember right now. And I did not check. I just looked, and the blanket was there.
But didn't you check to see if the rifle was there?
No. And when police came and asked if my husband had the rifle, I said yes. And he said, "Where is it?" I said, "It's in the garage." And when they opened the blanket, it was empty.
Well, wasn't the first thing that you do logically, if the thought crossed your mind sufficient to upset you, enough so you went outside that he may have done it, was to check to see if that rifle was there or not?
Well, maybe it's a logical thing to do, but I did not check it inside. If I went and checked, the blanket was folded, as kind of long, like something was in it.
But you did check to see if the blanket was there, and then you thought the rifle.
I did not check inside.
You didn't check inside the blanket.
No.
Let me just, Mr. Chairman, I want to just make one correction, and that is that when I said General Walker was shot at on April 23rd, I misstated. It was April the 10th, which still is 5 days after that. Thank you.
Time of the gentleman has expired. Gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Pryor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to make one more effort in this area of the motive that Lee Harvey Oswald might have had in the assassination. I think the American public has found it easier to understand how it happened than they have to understand why it happened. I understand your answer yesterday to my question about what was his motive, to in effect say that motivation is complex and you are reluctant to say any one thing caused him to do this. But I would like to ask your help, not in saying any one thing caused him to do it, but whether you think one or more factors that I will mention to you might have had a bearing on him. The broadest question, I think, in the American public's mind is, was it a politically motivated act, or was it an intensely personal act that came out of some twisted personal psyche? On the political motivation side, we have seen the photographs of Oswald holding a rifle in one hand, the Socialist Workers' Party paper in the other, in a defiant pose. We also know about his efforts to shoot General Walker. Those two things, when you put them together, raise the question of whether his motive could have been to make himself a hero of the American left, a hero of the left-wing political movement in this country. Do you, in your personal opinion, feel that that was a part of the motivation that made him assassinate the president?
Well, it's a quite difficult question to answer. I really don't know what to say about the motive. If you want my personal opinion about what I think, was it mental or political? I have to choose just the mental state of the person.
So that you would discount the political motivation as part of his motive. On the personal side of it, we do know the puzzling fact that he appeared to like President Kennedy. And therefore, there would not seem to be any political motivation in killing the president, but that it could have been that he simply wanted to make himself important by killing someone important. That he simply wanted to kill the man at the top, no matter what the man at the top's political views were, whether right wing or left wing. Do you feel that this latter motivation was the most important part of his motivation? That is, some sort of personal desire to be self-important by killing someone important?
Well, the whole matter is so irrational. It's very hard for us to even to come up with any rational answers. But I would buy your statement that you made, the last one, about as long as somebody important, it probably doesn't matter what their political views are.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
But this is just my opinion. I could be wrong. I would not know what person thought about.
Time of the gentleman has expired. Gentleman from District of Columbia, Mr. Fontroy.
I have no questions at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Gentleman from Connecticut, Mr. Dodd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mrs. Porter, just a couple of questions. In your response to a question from Congressman Edgar about the kind of treatment that Lee Oswald gave you, you described it as brutal treatment. Later in your testimony yesterday, when asked about the FBI and their treatment of you, you described their treatment of you as well as brutal. Those are the words you used. I'm wondering if you'd like to clarify what you mean by that. You described today brutal treatment as being hit by Lee Oswald. Am I to understand that in your use of the word brutal and your description of how you were treated by the FBI, that you are suggesting that you were also physically abused by the FBI?
I do apologize for my very poor vocabulary in English language, and maybe I did misuse the word in respect. Well, brutal in case of Lee, it was a physical abuse. I do not know another better word to describe it. When somebody treats you harshly and hurt you emotionally or very
Well, how would you describe it?
Well, I don't know. Anyway, FBI did not hit me physically.
It was more the tone of the questioning and so forth?
Yes.
I realize it's been a long time. It's been 15 years, and I think anyone would understand that having total recall of every event or circumstance is a difficult thing for anyone to do. But there were several times yesterday in your testimony where, when confronted with what I thought, and I limit this to myself, where I thought that your recollection maybe should be better, your response to a couple of questions was that you did not recall. And I'd like to raise those couple of questions again and ask you whether or not you can't do a bit better on your recollection for us, okay?
I'm just trying my best.
I understand, and I appreciate it. You destroyed, according to your testimony, some photos that we're talking about of Lee Oswald that you felt were incriminating to him. And in a question to you yesterday, you said that you didn't recall whether anyone had told you to destroy them or whether anyone was with you when you destroyed them. I'd like to ask you again, Mrs. Porter. It's a very important question. Whether or not anyone suggested to you, advised you, assisted you in any way in the destruction of those photographs after the assassination of the president. Can you clarify your statement regarding that point?
I do believe that all this happened very shortly after assassination. And many times I still was for a long time in a state of shock. And lots of, even days in my memory are they're completely blacked out. And it's not that I don't want to contribute to your questions, by answering them.
But you do remember
honestly,
destroying them?
I do remember destroying it as a fact.
Do you remember how you destroyed
it?
But
I think somebody reminded me that I burned it. That ring the bell, but...
how did you destroy them?
I don't remember where I was, who was around, absolutely nothing.
In your memory, can you see yourself destroying them?
I see only... no, I don't.
So you don't know how you destroyed them?
No.
And you have absolutely no recollection?
Not today, I don't. I'm not refusing to answer it, but I don't want to paint a picture that it wasn't existing.
Is your recollection that you destroyed these photographs before or after the FBI came to visit you?
I don't remember. I had...
Do you remember the FBI visiting you?
Yes. But it was so many visits. It wasn't just the one. So they were there every day. First FBI visit, I don't remember.
You don't remember whether you destroyed them before the FBI visit or after the FBI visit?
I don't remember. It was lots of officials with Secret Service and police and FBI all the time around.
That's all I'm talking about now is the very first interview.
I don't remember.
You don't remember whether
I don't remember who interviewed me the first time. Besides the police.
Let me go on one other point. You said that you recall that at least on one occasion prior to the assassination, FBI agent James Hosty came to your home and questioned you.
Yes.
All right? And that you also recall that your husband, Lee Oswald, was extremely upset about this visit of Hosty's. You remember that as well, don't you?
Yes, I do.
But then all of a sudden you go blank on me. You don't remember whether or not Agent Hosty ever called on you again after the assassination, or whether or not he was one of the agents who questioned you after the assassination. Can you help us out at all in your recollection of that area?
Yes, my state of mind before assassination wasn't just as in a state of hazard as afterwards. I do not remember Mr. Hosty's face at all, but I remember a visit of his before assassination, and I think he came twice because after the first visit, Lee was upset and he told me if this man come by again to take number of his lessons, his car's lessons, and that's what I did. So instead of, answering that he had been there once, logically it's twice before assassination, but I do not remember this man afterwards at all.
You have no recollection of him coming by your house again?
No.
Could I just have one additional minute, Mr. Chairman?
Without objection, gentleman's recognized.
I'd like to go back again, if I could, Mrs. Porter, to your response to my questions about the stay in Rotterdam on your way from Russia. You stated today that you believed it was some sort of a boarding house.
Yeah.
And if my memory serves me well, earlier statements with regard to the same incident, you had indicated that you stayed in the apartment, a private apartment in Rotterdam.
That's what I call boarding house in my mind. So is it different? It looked like it was like somebody's house.
It was someone's private dwelling. You didn't pay to stay there.
Well, Lee did. I don't think it was for free. It wasn't the friend's house. It was somebody who... Well, way I remember right now what Lee told me, that it was somebody, private person, rent the room inexpensively, to...
So you actually, it's a place where you rent a room then?
I think so, yes. It looks like a private house, and you pay for the room because the lady of the house prepared the meal.
And it was your understanding that there were prior arrangements made for you to stay in this place?
I think so, but by whom I do not know.
And you don't have any recollection of the people at all?
No.
Let me go back once more, just to the crossing of the border. Is it your statement that your husband, Lee Oswald, was with you when you crossed the border?
You mean from where? From Russia to... Lots of borders were crossed between a few countries like Germany and Poland.
Let me make sure I have it correct. I think there was a crossing at Brest, another one at Helmstedt?
No, it's at Brest. It's the last town between Poland and Russia.
And he was with you at both occasions?
Yes, sir.
There's no question in your mind about that?
Yes, sir. I mean, he was with me all the time.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. I have no further questions. Thank you,
The gentleman has expired. Gentleman from Ohio, Mr. Devine.
Mrs. Porter, taking you clear back to the time that you originally met Lee, this was in Russia, and you said you did not know he was from America or from the United States until someone later told you. Is that accurate?
Yes, during the few dances with him, he spoke with accent, but I did not know he was from America.
But his Russian was sufficiently fluent that you didn't think he was necessarily a foreigner to the Soviet Union?
He spoke with accent, yes, but lots of people in Russia do speak with accent and don't speak Russian very well if they're different nationality than Russians.
But his Russian was pretty good at that time, was it?
Just very good, yes.
I see. A moment ago when I was questioning you, I recited the route of Lee after the time that he left the book depository, and I misstated his destination as taxi cab. As I understand it, the evidence indicates that he hired the taxi cab and returned to the area of his rooming house rather than Mrs. Payne's residence, whereupon he apparently acquired the handgun and confronted Officer Tippett. After having fired the shots, he ran across a lawn, discharged the cartridge cases, and then ultimately disappeared in the theater where he was finally apprehended. But you would again assert for the record that you did not see Lee from the time he left you on the morning of the assassination, ostensibly to go to work, until you later saw him after the assassination in the jail.
That's correct, sir.
And you have no recollection of his having called you on the telephone from the jail after the time you visited him?
No.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Time of the gentleman has expired. Gentleman from Tennessee, Mr. Ford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mrs. Porter, why did you feel such strong loyalty to Lee to protect him, even to the point of giving misleading testimony, when during the great majority of your marriage to him, he was at times brutal and violent to you?
You ask me why?
I'm asking, why did you feel such strong loyalty to Lee to give misleading testimony at different times?
Well, I did not have anybody in this country but Lee.
Did not what?
I did not have anybody in this country but my husband. Well, I do not know why I have that sense of loyalty or whatever. It's just me.
Is that why at given times that you misled, gave misleading testimony to different ones because of no one in this country but Lee? Was that the reason?
It's not only that reason. It's the lots of reasons together. You don't know why you make decisions. Maybe it's my age, maybe loyalty to Lee, maybe fear, but it's all complex feelings, and that's the decision I had to make. I don't mean that that was the right decision always, but sometimes you do make wrong decisions.
You know, considering his actions and personality, did you ever think that Lee might be mentally unstable or ill?
Well, I was only 21 when he died. I wasn't mature enough to recognize the symptoms, but I don't think anybody in the right mind can commit crimes like that.
Did you ever seek out help?
Right now, I do assume that person was ill.
Did you ever seek any help for Lee?
Pardon me?
Did you ever seek out any help for him?
Well, at the time, I wasn't mature enough to make to recognize the symptoms, so I wasn't aware of it.
You recognized it, but you were not aware of it.
No, I did not recognize the state of his mind then. It never occurred to me then that Lee was sick. I did not come to that conclusion then in my life.
But his actions and his personality was sort of strange.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, no further questions.
Time of the gentleman has expired. Gentleman from Indiana, Mr. Fitz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mrs. Porter, when you destroyed the photographs, did it not occur to you that there would be negatives around somewhere and that you ought to look for those and destroy them too?
No, it did not occur to me.
And has it occurred to you since as to what happened to the negatives? Since clearly we've had 3 different pictures, there would have to be 3 different negatives somewhere. The Warren Commission reports say only 1, but we'll deal with that at another time. But do you know what happened to any of the negatives?
I assume that the government has them.
I'm sorry?
When they confiscate Lee's belongings, I assume that they got the negatives from there.
You did not burn the negatives?
I don't recall doing that.
Let me turn quickly to another set of questions. Did Lee have any Cuban friends in New Orleans?
Not that I know of.
Did he ever mention any Cubans that he might have had contact with?
No.
Did he ever talk to you about his political activities?
Oh, excuse me, may I correct myself? When he was arrested for this fair play for Cuba, he did mention that he met some Cubans on the street, so that's the one who gave him the pamphlets. But I do not, it wasn't no specific names mentioned.
So he did talk to you about passing out pamphlets?
Yes, he told me about that.
And did he talk to you about speaking about Cuba on the radio? That would be a little unusual that a person would speak on the radio.
Yes, he told me.
He mentioned that to you?
Yes.
And did he mention the formation of the Fair Play for Cuba Committee?
Yes, till I discovered that he was only one who...
And did he mention lecturing on Cuba and communism to a group of Jesuit priests?
Yes.
Did he ever mention the CIA?
No.
At any time?
Not that I recall.
Now, turning to the time that you lived in the Dallas area, did he have any Cuban or Spanish-speaking contacts in Dallas?
I don't think so. I don't know any of them.
Do you recall any of Lee's friends in Dallas or in New Orleans ever referring to him as Leon rather than Lee?
No.
The other area I want to get some additional information on is the circumstances under which you met George de Mohrenschildt. Mr. de Mohrenschildt is an aristocratic, very wealthy individual, educated and smooth and the rest, rather from a different walk of life than Lee. Can you give us any indication as to how the two gravitated together, how they are so very, very different?
No, because Lee was exposed to lots of Russian people, because of me being Russian background. That's the friends we had. And apparently from all of them, he liked George de Mohrenschildt the best.
I'm sorry?
Apparently from all of them, Lee liked George de Mohrenschildt the best.
The best. Can you tell me your own recollection of the first time you met Mr. de Mohrenschildt?
I don't remember how we have been introduced and by whom and where.
So you don't remember?
It was kind of, the way I remember right now, I think it was at somebody's luncheon and it was lots of people present and they were one of them.
Did you grow to know George de Mohrenschildt well? Of all of Lee's friends, did you know him better than the rest?
Well, I like him very well. I cannot describe main character maybe very completely. But well enough to like him very much.
Were there many, many contacts between Mr. de Mohrenschildt and Lee and you? many times
Well,
together?
they visit us occasionally, and he stopped by just to say hello for a few minutes, and then if he's in the area.
By happenstance, did he ever stop by when Lee was not there?
By our house, he did stop once, yes.
I have just one additional minute, Mr. Chairman.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized.
Do you recall Mr. de Mohrenschildt taking you anywhere apart from the time that he would have taken you and Lee together somewhere?
I don't remember that. When I said that he came by once by himself, it was somebody else with him, some gentleman, and he said he had been in the area and he wanted me to meet so-and-so. It was some businessman or business associate of his, but I don't know who it was. I do not recall the gentleman's name or the face. And we talked for 5 minutes. He didn't even stay for coffee, and he left, and that was it.
Do you remember him taking you to visit the Brutons, Admiral Bruton and his family?
No, I read it somewhere about that, but I don't recall the incident at all.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Time of the gentleman has expired. Gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Edgar.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Porter, let me draw your attention to the pictures one last time, and you'll see that there are 3 separate pictures up there. Did you take those pictures?
Yes, I did. I don't know how many, 2 or 3.
I had an occasion to ride in the back alley where those pictures were taken and look at that area. It's a little bit changed, but to see that area and to get a visual sighting of what the backdrop is. If you would look at that picture, I'd just like to ask you a question. Why would someone like yourself, who does not like rifles, guns around the house, agree to take a picture of Lee in that setting, 2 of the pictures clearly with rifles in his hands, a rifle, and one of the picture with his rifle and his handgun? Why did you take that picture?
I just have been forced to, and instead of be physically abused by Lee, I just did it what he asked me to, or told me to.
WFCR Amherst. That particular pose?
Pardon me?
Why did he want to take that particular pose, that particular setting, with the rifle and the documents in his hand?
Well, his main explanation was that this newspaper that he has in his hand, that's why he wanted to take the picture for this newspaper, something like that.
Was he going to send a copy of this picture to the newspaper and hope that it got printed?
I don't know, but that's what he said, something to do with the newspaper.
Was he going to put this picture on a brochure for some of his activities?
I don't recall why. More than what I said.
Well, if you look at the picture carefully, it's taken in the daytime, full bright sunlight. Was he at all nervous that a neighbor would come out of their house or somebody would come down the alleyway? And
I do believe it was a kind of weekend, Saturday or Sunday, and the neighbors were gone.
Okay, this picture was taken in Dallas?
Yes.
And it was taken when?
I think it's shortly after noon or noon. It's not early in the morning, not very late at night.
What time of year was it? What time of year was it taken?
In the springtime, I believe. It was warm outside.
Well, we have the one that had a notation on the back, which is dated April.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the picture would have had to be taken prior to that April in '63. So that would have had to be January, February, or March of 1963. Is that not correct?
Well, it could be in April.
Except, as I understand it, it's the 5th day of April that's notated on the back.
Well, but that have nothing, I mean, I'm sorry, I'm not expert and I'm trying to prove something. But the spring gets very quick in Texas. And
You
quite
can tell
early
it's a
too.
spring picture because he has
Well, I can't. I just,
short-sleeved shirt on.
I'm just telling you that what I recall, if it was a spring, what picture shows, I don't know.
You said yesterday something that intrigued me. When we were trying to figure out who wrote the Russian inscription on the back, you said, well, it doesn't look like my handwriting. I think you said, it sounds like me.
Yes.
Could you clarify that for me?
Well, I can be very sarcastic sometimes, and I'm noticed for the sharp tone when I'm getting angry. Mm-hmm. So if I dislike something, it will sound like, I mean, it's the tone of the statement could be like mine.
Mr. Chairman, I ask unanimous consent for 2 additional minutes. Continue. It sounds like you.
Well, I thought I finished already.
But the expression says...
Sarcasm of the phrase would be...
But sarcastically, you're saying hunter for fascist or hunter of fascist. Which is it? Hunter of or for?
Of.
Hunter of fascist.
Yeah, I probably misinterpreted before the same phrase.
What is a fascist?
Fascist? Well, I think it's the party in Germany, and in my mind it's something to do with the war. Aggressive people, military people.
Was it a joke?
What joke?
Was that sarcastic expression a joke?
Well, I do not know. It sounds like it.
Okay. Just one final series of questions very quickly. Mr. Fithian was asking you about your relationship with Mr. de Mohrenschildt and the difference between his lifestyle and your lifestyle. Did you see Mr. de Mohrenschildt after the assassination?
Not shortly after. I did see him, I think, on 2 occasions afterwards.
And what were the purposes of those 2 occasions?
Well, I think it was a Russian Easter party once, and he was present. And I think once I attended the Russian movie at the campus, and lots of Russians were present there too, and he was one of them.
In the Dallas area at the time of the assassination, there were a number of clubs and organizations of Russian people, were there not?
No.
Was there an organization of...
No, it's just it's a social gathering. No.
But there was a social group of people who sent out cards and said, come to a movie, or come to a luncheon, or come to a...
No, it wasn't organized.
How did you know that the Russian community was getting together to do a particular thing?
Occasionally they do this as a, at the church or something like that. I think maybe somebody called me and invited me to go.
Could you have met Mr. de Mohrenschildt at that kind of a setting?
I don't think so. I think it was a dinner gathering or something like that.
And just finally, on the 2 occasions that you met Mr. de Mohrenschildt after the assassination, did you have occasion to talk to him about Lee Harvey Oswald and about the assassination?
I don't recall. I don't think it was the right atmosphere or place to talk about, to discuss on details. Just more likely like polite hello, how are you, and things like that.
But he didn't volunteer that he had a picture from Lee, or...
No.
He didn't share with you any information at that time?
No, sir.
Did he offer to help you out at all financially?
I think he did.
Did he give you any money?
I don't recall, but they were very generous about inviting us to their house and sometimes bring something over. They were helpful. I don't mean like you trying to say that he paid me a big sum amount of money or not. He did not.
Not necessarily a big sum of money, but did he assist you after the assassination with your children?
After assassination? No.
Okay, but prior to the assassination, he might have helped you out financially.
Well, maybe he buy box of candy or some toy for a child. That's things I'm talking about.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Time of gentleman has expired. Mrs. Porter, this morning you told me that you and Lee did not have a telephone while you were staying in Russia. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Did you have access to a telephone at any time?
Yes.
And
they have public phones, and my aunt and uncle had telephone at work. So if I want to call somebody, I can make connection.
Where was that phone?
They have public phones. My aunt and uncle had the telephone.
Located near your apartment there?
She lived a few blocks away, like 2 blocks.
And she had a telephone?
Yes.
I see. So whenever you or Lee needed to use a telephone, you could use her phone?
Yes, so they have public phone downstairs, too.
Okay, good. Now, I asked you about an incident at the train station involving a KGB agent this morning, and you could not recall that.
No, I don't.
All right. In Priscilla Anderson's book, Marina and Lee, at page 187, where it says this: the Oswalds spent their last night in Minsk at Pavel's. The next day, May 22 or 23, they boarded the train from Moscow. Russian fashion, their closest friends, including Pavel and all the Ziggers, came to the station to see them off. But even there, they noticed that they were being watched by a man who was standing half-hidden behind a pillar. Listen in, if you like. Eleonora Zigger practically spat in his face. We have no secrets here. Her sister Anita added, I simply loathe people who eavesdrop. Marina kept glancing anxiously around the station, looking for Ilya and Valya. Finally, she saw them standing way off by themselves in a corner. Their faces were forlorn, and they looked as if they were fearful of being seen by the KGB. Does this... I read all of that. It's right here. Having heard that, does that refresh your recollection of what you told Miss Johnson?
Well, this is the correct statement. I mean, this is the fact that Mrs. Johnson did gather from me many years ago. I do not remember right now the man and where he was staying. I remember where my aunt and uncle were staying, but that's correct.
If it is in this book,
if it's in the book, it's correct. Yes.
Thank you. I think I have just one further question. In reply to Mr. Pryor's questioning of you this morning with reference to motivation for Lee doing this type of a thing, you gave some indication that you could agree that it probably was done just to perhaps make himself a bigger man. But you did know, by virtue of the General Walker experience, that he was capable of killing for political reasons. Did you not?
I still really did not ever consider it, that was really that political. It's a political figure. Mr. Walker was, he will be well known if he will be killed. I mean, the public, he's known to the public.
Well,
he gave me his reasons for shutting him as a political. And maybe at this point it was somewhat. Maybe he tried to make rational explanation to me, but still it's irrational enough to make a statement that man was sick.
Let me just refer you to a couple of things. Number one, he had said to you, with reference to General Walker, that he was worse than Hitler and he should be killed, had he not?
Yes.
All right.
He made the comparison.
Right. And then let me just make reference to a statement that you gave us in the deposition we took from you on August the 9th. And we asked you this question with reference to what happened when he came back to the house with you. The question was, what did he say when he returned? You said, well, he turned the radio on, and he was very pale, and he was listening to the news, changing from station to station. I asked him what it was all about, and he said that he tried to shoot General Walker. I told him, how dare you to take somebody's life, and you should not do things like that. I mean you have no right to do it. He said, well, if somebody shot Hitler at the right time, you would do justice to humanity. So since I don't know anything about the man, I should not talk about it. Is that what he said?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And at the point he said that, so since I don't know anything about the man, I should not talk about it, he was talking about you.
But I mean not knowing anything about me.
So from that statement to you then, you then did know that he was capable of killing for political reasons. Is that correct?
I still think the reasons, well, I'm sorry, but anytime a person capable of killing somebody is not stable-minded person, whatever the reasons are, maybe it's the political excuse, I don't know. I still don't think it's just strictly political.
Thank you, Mrs. Porter. Ms. Porter, at the conclusion of a witness's testimony before our committee, that witness is entitled to take 5 minutes in order to in any way explain or comment in any way upon the testimony they've given our committee. You may amplify or expand upon it in any way that you so desire. And on behalf of the committee, I would at this time extend to you 5 minutes for that purpose.
No, I just want to thank you for listening, and I don't have any comments to add.
Okay. We would, does counsel desire any time to make any statement?
Mr. Chairman, I do not, but I would like to thank the committee and the staff for the courtesies extended to Mrs. Porter. I'd also like to thank the United States Marshal Service and the Capitol Hill Police for their extremely professional handling of the circumstances surrounding her appearance here.
We'd like this time also to thank Mr. Hamilton of the D.C. Bar Association for having provided counsel for Mrs. Porter while she was here. And we thank both of you for appearing, and at this time you're excused. All persons are requested to remain in their seats until Mrs. Porter has left the room.